car looks good, Russell, but is it good enough?
Who knows, Tony? You know, I mean, it looks good, but we'll have to wait and see.
When you're sitting here like this now, it must be a case of virtually cursing your luck, isn't it?
No, not really. You know, I mean, we're 15th. We've got a lot of work to do. Let's go out there and do it, Tony.
This is a look at motorsport put together on behalf of Warmerstyle Racing and featuring their Formula 3 driver Russell Spence. Spence led the British Championship easily at one stage this season before an amazing dosage of bad luck brought him to the Grand Prix meeting at Silverstone, with the championship slipping away from him. Warmerstyle chairman and managing director Bill Blanford arrived at Silverstone by helicopter.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
You've got your cigarette.
Hello, my
Nice
friend.
to see you. We've just been talking to you. This is really sartorial elegance.
Well, I mean, you know, you have to do these things, don't you? No, it's absolutely super. You know, looking at the traffic piling up in here, I think it's the best thing I've ever done. You know, this helicopter thing. It's absolutely super.
You came in by helicopter this morning?
Yeah, we flew in this morning. Yeah.
That's the only thing that's flying, though, in the Warmerstyle team at the moment, isn't it, really?
Well, you know, the world's full of problems.
Can you overcome them today?
I hope so. I hope so. I think, you know, I mean, a lot of things have happened over the last few days that we, well, we've just got to live with it, you know. I think we've overcome the problems. I mean, the tragedy of this situation now is that we've only got 15 laps on this race, you know, and here we are 15th on the grid, you know. What does one say? The orders of the day is let's get a point, albeit for fastest lap.
What was the danger earlier in the week of you not even being able to make the race?
Very real. I can't say any more than that at this moment in time.
Russell says he's not disappointed. I believe that he probably is, and I'm sure that you are.
Yeah, I think everybody's disappointed, but you know, we've got to live with it. I mean, we've got a situation where Tuesday evening we did not have a car. Late Tuesday evening we had a pile of nuts and bolts and bits, and I mean, the support that has come in from the team has been absolutely incredible. These guys have been working literally 24 hours a day for the last 3 days, you know, having sort of hours off in shifts, you know, to literally get a car on the circuit. I think if we don't do what we hoped we could have done or would have done in the race, you'll see the prettiest car on the circuit still.
That's certainly the prettiest jacket around the circuit.
Well, I mean, you know, it's all part of the act, isn't it? Morning, Scott.
Right.
Hello. Now, everybody will be running presumably with full tanks and race boost, so this is really the thing, whether he's right, whether it's going to stay on the floor. What goes through your mind?
Motor racing is big business, a great spectator sport, a source of international press, and for the drivers, highly dangerous. From here, international journalists file their reports around the world. They're paid and paid well for plying their trade. For some, like Rex Dillon, a marshal from Cheshire, there's no money.
Well, the watch is with me. We're on the inside of Woodcote.
What do you think is special about Grand Prix, then?
Well, I don't come to many, but those I do come to, I find them very interesting, you know, because it's the excitement and, you know, all the things that go on, like, that's the main thing.
Do they keep you going?
Why? Why the adrenaline's flowing, you know. I've been here 3 days anyway.
3 days, what,
Oh,
camping?
Yeah.
Is it expensive exercise though, isn't it?
Not really, no. It's part of the game, isn't it?
All the razzmatazz of Grand Prix Day. The Formula 3 cars are prepared for their race. But in the Warmerstyle courtesy marquee, Russell Spence is pensive.
Not the best of weekends, Russell, not the best of weeks, really.
No, on Tuesday night it was decided that I was changing teams. The boys started building a new car on Wednesday, so Wednesday morning at 10:30 we didn't have a car, engine, gearbox, spares, wheels, anything. The mechanics have done a tremendous job. They started Wednesday 11 o'clock and actually finished about 1 hour before official qualifying on Friday. So a tremendous effort.
15th on the grid. What possible chance on what must be perhaps one of the most important motor races in your career?
First of all, being 15th on the grid, I mean, it was a new car. In the first session we had the wrong shock absorbers on. In the second session, unfortunately, we had another problem with the shock absorbers. We had one of them very faulty. It's very disappointing for one of the Grand Prix managers to start 15. By the same token, the all 18 race series is very important. I mean, my aim this year is not to be trying to impress Formula 1 managers and going off. My aim is to win the British Formula 3 Championships. And through showing that I can be consistent over an 18 race period, I think that'll impress them a lot more than winning one-off races.
But even then, the race itself, the Formula 3 race that backs up a Grand Prix, has always been seen to be the one that the winner has got every likelihood of going into Formula 1, and you knew that at the beginning of this week. It must have been very frustrating for you.
Yes, I think it is, Tony, but I mean, on Tuesday, as I said, it was decided that we were swapping teams. On Wednesday morning, we didn't even have a car. It's no good looking at it negatively and saying, well, you know what I mean, what we could have done. The fact of it is we're in 15th place. The fact of it is it's a new car. And we're just going to be going for it.
Was it an inopportune week to actually change teams?
Of course, it's never opportune to change teams. I mean, once you start off a season, it's always good to carry the continuity, the relationships that you've got. I was very fortunate that the mechanics have come with us. But once again, I mean, I'm looking at it very positively. Okay, this weekend the result might be a little bit bad, but as from after today, I'm sure it'll improve with the new team.
I think you're about a second off the pace, aren't you?
No, 1.7 seconds.
1.7 seconds. That's a heck of a lot to try and get back.
Yes, it is, but it's there to get.
Can you get that back? Is it possible?
If the car is good, yes, I can. Realistically, there's been no testing whatsoever on the car. We've had two 30-minute sessions. So I mean, if it were a bookmaker, it'd be 100 to 1 against us getting it right. But I don't know. However the car is, I'll be going for it and putting 110% effort in.
Talking about 110%, you've accused yourself in the past of being perhaps too aggressive, and you said the maturity was coming this year. Isn't there a very real danger when the flags drops and 100,000 people are screaming and shouting out there that Russell Spence will feel a bit of that adrenaline and really go for it?
Russell Spence always feels the adrenaline. Russell Spence in his own mind always does go for it. I think the only difference is that now it's a more controlled style. Every now and then drivers make mistakes. I'm no different. I make a lot of mistakes, both in my personal life and my work in motor racing. As for what will happen, it's impossible for me to tell you now. Who knows? But I know one thing, that I'll be putting in 110% and going for it.
Putting it right down on the bottom line, though, you must be disappointed.
No, you know what I mean? It's silly to look at it that way, Tony. I mean, that's a very negative attitude to take. I mean, in racing, everything's got to be a positive thing. It's a positive that we move from a team. It's a positive that we've got a car, we've got an engine, we've got a team together, and we're out on the grid. I mean, who knows? I mean, there could be a big shunt, it could wipe out the first 7, and no problem. I mean, I hope that we're going to get on that grid, there's going to be a nice downpour so we can all stay on the slicks and go for it. Because plenty of rain out there is going to help my cause.
From Russell Spence to the fast-rising Brazilian Maurizio Gugelman.
Maurizio, they say that every race is important, but is there something special about this one because it backs the Grand Prix up?
Yes, it is, because I mean it's very important to do well in a race like that. I've been through to 2 Grand Prix support races last year from a Ford 2000, and obviously making a difference now inside you. As far as championship concerned, it's just another race, and it's still important, but it's good to do well in front of all the Formula 1 teams.
Has anybody talked to you yet about the prospects of Formula 1 next season?
No, I'm keeping that away so far. I haven't spoken to anyone at all, because I think I want to take the championship first. I'm 9th now, and it's very important for me to win this championship and then see what comes up in the end of the year.
You've got a little bit of a leeway to make up. There's a bit of ground to make up for you to win the championship, really, isn't there?
Yes, there is 14 points between myself and the leader, but I think I'm looking good at the moment.
I think it's going to be a year of consistency rather than ultimate speed in Formula 3.
I think early in the year, the road runners had a problem because the car wasn't so good, but now I think, you know, you could find out just 1 or 2 drivers dominating the series, so I think it could change from now on.
Does big crowds bring out the best in you?
Yes, I think it gives you more pressure, but I didn't put under pressure before, so I'm looking forward for the race.
Maurizio Gugelman thinks ahead to the race. This man thinks to his head. Grand Prix are all about colour, but not the colour just of Grand Prix or Formula 3 racing. What about this for the colour of yesteryear? Maseratis, Ferraris, Lotuses. This Maserati had cost you a pretty penny or a lot of ink in the checkbook. And what about the people that race these cars? Richard Thwaites hails from Yorkshire. He's got a stable of older cars. This one, I think, is giving him a little bit of a problem. No seat belts or rollover bars for these fellas. They perhaps need to roll over altogether. Now, is it going to start? Yes, I think it is.
This is a 2.5 Maserati, I know. Is it older than you, Richard?
Well, I might look old, but not just, no.
When was it at its prime?
I'm 8 years older than the car.
8 years older than the car?
Yeah.
What's it like now?
It's the car?
Yeah.
Well, we ought to prime it with petrol, that's why it didn't start.
No, but the car itself, and when it's going, what is it like? I mean, it is really a car of yesteryear. When you had to race, you had to move your arms.
Oh, that's right. I mean, you sit like this, and you're going through the corner, you put a bit of lock on around right hand. I think you're going like that all the time.
No rollover bar?
No.
Crash helmet, yes.
A crash helmet, no seat belt. I mean, I wouldn't wear seat belts without a roll bar on.
I mean, do you have to be just a little bit different to do this?
I wouldn't say so. I think you'd ride them a little bit more carefully than if I had in my Chevron GT car with seat belts and a roll cage. But once you think about beforehand, you think, oh, I'll take it easy. But once you get out of the trap, you don't really take it very easy at all.
Richard Thwaites and his colleagues from the cars of years gone by are the real characters of the business. But meanwhile, while they await their race, paddock marshal Paul Weatherall is up to his neck in it. There's a mess to sort out.
How many marshals are involved at something like the Grand Prix?
Ooh, from, well, here within the paddock, we've got 120-ish. We get volunteers arriving as time goes on.
And none of them are paid?
Not one of them. They occasionally get maybe a can of beer given or something such as. Usually they just get hassle and aggravation.
What sort of aggravation?
from people like this who have just had the motor car bent, and we go up and say, can you please move it? And of course they're a little bit uptight. Understandable. So we've got to be a little bit balancing.
Why do they say the British Marshal is the best in the world?
I think because of the standards that we require. Most certainly it's a good training ground, and we don't let people go too far too fast. So we ask guys to maybe spend a year or two in the paddock, then they go out and do a little bit on the circuit, and they're being trained all the time.
Are marshals frustrated racing drivers?
I think so, yes. Yes, I would say so.
In the air, the famous Red Devils. On the ground, snap that one, there's even truck racing. One man who races those, former world motorcycle champion Barry Sheen. He also races saloon cars.
What sort of a life have you got nowadays? Truck racing, four-wheel racing, anything but motorbikes, is it?
Yeah, it's quite busy to say the least.
The only time we see you on two wheels now is when you're whizzing around the paddock.
Yeah, or when I'm going through the chicane and I hit the curbs.
Do you get people trying to tempt you back into two-wheel racing?
Oh, it doesn't matter. If somebody came up now and said, I'll give you £4 million to race next year, I'd say, I don't want to know. I'd say, I'll have the £4 million, 5, 6, 10 million. I'm not, you know, through history of motorcycle racing, people have retired 5 times, 10 times and come back. Nobody can accuse me. Everything I've always said what I mean and done what I've said, you know, and I never ever will race a motorbike again, ever.
The cars is something that you might well have done even earlier, but you've never really gone after cars from a very serious point of view. I don't say you don't race seriously, but
sure.
You know what I mean, from a very serious point of view.
Well, I was heavily occupied running my bike racing team, and I was so occupied with that, I didn't have time to think about anything else. When I gave up motorcycle racing, I'd always liked saloon car racing, so, you know, obviously I jumped into this. But yeah, I do it seriously. You know, it's very enjoyable.
Do you like motorbike racing now? Do you like to watch motorbike racing? Do you go?
No, I don't actually, to be quite honest. Well, I've been going to motorcycle races since I was 5 years old, and I raced bikes for nearly 17 years. So I don't think I've missed anything. And it's end of one era and the beginning of another.
You say the beginning of another, but you're really in the very much the middle distance of motor racing.
Oh, sure, yeah. You know, look, I'm not going to get overnight world fame and acclaim out of racing a saloon car or a truck, but I don't care about that. You know, I do what I want to do because I enjoy it.
Your mother and father were saying that you can now go from one end of the paddock to the other, and sometimes nobody will hold a hand up and stop you. Not every time, but sometimes nobody will stop you. And in the past, you couldn't go 20 yards without half a dozen books under your nose.
I must admit, that is really nice. That is really nothing again. You know, all the people that were at motorcycle race meetings, they're a really great bunch of people, and you'd have a really terrible day, really horrendous, aggravating day, and you still got to be nice to people because it's not their fault you had a terrible day. So, you know, you'd have the worst day in the world and somebody would come up and say, oh, would you sign this for me? How could you do? You couldn't turn around and say, I've had a terrible day, go away and leave me alone. No, you know, it's nice because in the motorcycle thing, you couldn't call it pressure, but I didn't have to get chased a lot.
Are you motor racing just for fun, or is there more to it than that?
No, just for fun. Well, I say just for fun. I get tremendous enjoyment out of racing for Toyotas, for example, and if it works for them, it certainly works for me because it's very enjoyable.
You used to have fan mail coming in by the bucket load. Does it still come, or is it half a bucket?
No, it's about... Depends, you know, just about almost the same as it was before. Except it's quite funny now because you get little kids that are 2 or 3 years old and they come and they say, oh, I know you, you're Barry Sheen, you're the one that does that Just Amazing programme. And it's quite funny not to be known as a motorcycle racer.
What about your role in television and times on radio now? Is that to be what you eventually are going to be?
No,
totally?
no. I've got lots of different things that I'm looking into at the moment. And, you know, all sorts of different, what can you say, things that there's a possibility that, so I can't really tell you, but I'm looking into lots of different
There's something
things.
coming up?
Yeah, there is.
What is it?
It's taken a lot to put together, though. Well, it's nothing that would probably be of no interest to you whatsoever.
It's of every interest to us. What is it?
Something that is financially lucrative.
Well, I can't imagine you going into something that wasn't financially lucrative.
Well, no, yeah, but it's hard work and it should be enjoyable.
You enjoy a challenge, don't you?
Yeah, sure. Don't we all?
One thing that I think that a lot of people must notice about you, that even now at the circuits, away from all the glamour, Mum and Dad are still there. I mean, I don't think you could tear your dad away from being wherever you're racing.
Well, I love my mum and dad, you know, and they're great, terrific parents. They were always very good to me. They're not a pain in the backside. They're really helpful and lovely.
You're a family man as well yourself, man.
Sure, yeah. Got a little daughter.
Is it really maturing Sheen now?
No, not at all. I'm still as brainless as I ever was.
Are there any slippers near the fireside?
No. None of that. You know, I've been with Seth 10 years now, and my outlook on life is exactly the same now as it was 10 years ago.
What about the faults? I mean, people look at you, the boy next door, sort of going, faults. Have you got a fault?
Oh, Christ, I would say so. Undoubtedly.
Are you going to expose them?
Oh, yeah, I smoke 40 cigarettes a day. It's terrible, you know. Listen, I'm far from being a saint, but I just do what I enjoy in life, you know, and if it upset people, I wouldn't do it, you know. You're here once and you've got to enjoy it. It's no use trying to enjoy something when it's all too late.
Is there anything in Barry Sheen that you would say, I made one big mistake, I regret that, I wish I'd done something else?
Yeah. I left school when I was 14, I should have left school when I was 12.
Was really that bad, was it?
Yeah.
With 8 A-levels?
Yeah. Yeah, what does A stand for?
Would you be tempted ever to do anything educational again? I mean, what would the message be that you'd give to kids who are watching? I mean,
don't take any notice of me. If you're getting on good at school, you work hard at it. I just had a bunch of teachers that were so bad that it's a terrible thing to say. Times have changed now. School's a lot better now, and the teachers aren't so self-righteous and full of themselves as they were when I was at school. So don't listen to me. I talk a lot of rubbish.
I'm sure you don't. Barry Sheen, thank you very much.
That's all right. Okay.
Just 2 years ago, many feared for the life of Barry Sheen, having had a terrible accident at this circuit. Thankfully, he's all right. So's she. But this isn't. An early accident on this car curtails the day's racing. All sorts of characters come to motor racing. One of them, ex-Coronation Street actor Eddie Yates. Is he a frustrated racing driver?
You're not with the police force?
No, not.
Yeah, I do quite a bit of fast driving. I spent most of my life driving up and down the motorways, so you know you get quite used to driving reasonably quick.
As an actor, you're in the public eye, but
I've never done any competition stuff.
Is there a bit of frustration? What are you saying there? Is there a bit of frustration that you'd like to be out there and doing a bit of competition?
I don't think Formula One, no, that's. I once got involved in rally driving a little bit, but then they're all much younger and too quick for me.
And in a cover comes for the first time, and it's obviously John Blair slicing in the lead, except Sandy out there, and a whole gaggle of cars. We've got 1, 2 onto the grass, 3, another car hit in the back, and already in this Grand Prix, it looks as if we got 4 cars out of it. One trying to continue going, and right in front of us at the moment, the man retiring, Philippe Elliott, and he'll be very quickly out of the car. We've got another car just up from us as well. And the Clemanta car goes out, and that is a very short race indeed for several of the drivers. Patrick Tambay is out. Patrick Tambay is parked just along from us on the pit road. Another car trying to come round at the moment, but Philippe Elliott with absolutely no other thought in his mind than to get away from the circuit now. And he must be a very disappointed driver indeed. An early end to the Grand Prix. Nicky Rosberg chasing Ayrton Senna, and a very fast and fierce pace being set in the early part of this Marlborough British Grand Prix. Out of the race, and he doesn't look very happy at all about that. The flying fin, the man who went oh so quickly in practice twice, beat what would have been an unofficial lap record. Nicky Rosberg out of the race. We'll try and get a word with him in a second. Very good try. Nicky, what
never broke, I think.
Was it going well before that? Were you feeling good?
Yeah, everything was going all right. Saying no rust that much quicker at this stage, but it's just when you do your own game and look after your own tyres and then see later how it's going to be.
You went so quickly in practice, it must be very, very disappointing for you.
Well, that's motor racing, isn't it?
So what do you do now? Just go back there and think about what might have been?
Go and find the sunshine in Spain.
And this is Prost again. And all the time, Ayrton Senna knows that Prost is there. Nigel, what went wrong out there?
We had a clutch problem, and basically it was just about to blow the rear end of the car apart, so I had to stop.
It must have been really disappointing for you because you were really going so well in the early part of it.
Yeah, well, the thing was we had just got to the crossover point where the harder tyres were coming as quick as the slower tyres, the softer tyres, I should say, and therefore I should have been going quicker at that point. So we're just at the crossover point, but you know, never mind, we live to fight another day.
You're really rather close to what is your original home here, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's super to perform anywhere in England, but Silverstone's very special, it's a nice circuit. But there you go, that's motor racing.
I think you're in the Isle of Man altogether now, aren't you?
Yes, I've been there for 3 years now.
Does that mean a trip back there tonight, or are you going to get some chance to stay in the Midlands?
No, we'll have some drinks with some friends tonight and we'll be going back in the morning.
Nigel, better luck next time.
Okay, thank you.
You're certainly the most glamorous looking Grand Prix drivers I've ever seen, but I don't believe that either of you actually drive Grand Prix cars, do you?
No. No. We'd like to have a go, though.
I bet you would. What are you doing all dressed up in sort of fireproof overalls and whatnot?
Trying to get people to buy the magazine, Grand Prix magazine.
And are they being interested by you in it?
Had a few offers, I think.
What, for the magazine?
Yeah, that as well.
That as well. What other offers have you had?
For the glasses,
sunglasses.
the sunglasses.
It must be very difficult to walk around looking like that and not get shutted up. Is it happening?
Yes, it does happen. It's bound to, and I think with any girls, if you're in a uniform at an event like this, it always happens.
Do you like being shutted up?
Sometimes.
What about racing drivers themselves? I mean, could that really turn you on?
No, not at all.
You're not turned on by racing drivers?
No.
I think you are, aren't you?
I'm very interested in racing.
And drivers?
Well, there are a lot of drivers that I've got to know over the past couple of years, because my ex-boyfriend was a racing driver.
That was David Hunt, James Hunt's brother?
Yes.
So
I got to know quite a few people on the circuit anyway.
Can that be the same sort of relationship as a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship in a non-dangerous sport?
No. Well, in a non-dangerous sport,
yeah.
Yes, I think it's probably the same in any sport, because if you're dedicated enough and want to get to the top of a sport, you have to sacrifice an awful lot, and a girlfriend has to become part of that.
Would you go out with another racing driver?
Yes, if I liked somebody enough, then whether they were a racing driver or whatever. I wouldn't go out with somebody because they were a racing driver.
But if you liked them, you would. Would you go with a racing driver?
Not at all. I don't think so. I mean, I've never met one that I really, have liked anyway. So, but I think you have to give up a lot if you're going to be a racing driver's girlfriend.
And you wouldn't want to give it up?
No. Don't think so.
Just flared it that little tiny bit when you pull it down.
Which is an advantage or a disadvantage to have James Hunt as a brother?
I think it evens itself out, actually. I think in some ways it's an advantage, but in other ways it can hinder you. People expect a lot from you very quickly. But people say it's an advantage in publicity. It isn't always, because you've got to remember that James isn't universally popular.
Did you remind him of that when you...
Oh no, I don't need to remind him of that. He knows that himself. He brings it upon himself sometimes.
So would you think that there'll come a time when you become David Hunt and nobody just thinks about James? Is that the eventual aim?
Well, no, that's not my aim in life, not in the least. My aim is to enjoy myself in motor racing and do the very best I can, hopefully get to the top. And the fact that James was involved in it is neither here nor there, and I've got no ambition to sort of remove his name from being labelled to me. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Are you good enough to get right to the top?
I believe so, yes.
David Hunt, the brother of former world champion James Hunt. But now the Formula 3 cars have to be in the assembly area. They're there waiting for their race.
What does go through your mind these last few moments, last few minutes?
I think really you just try to calm your mind down completely so that as soon as you go out in the car, you shut everything else off. And it's just a question of trying to concentrate your mind, really. And I find the best way to concentrate my mind is not particularly, it sounds odd, but not particularly to think of anything. I don't try to think of a particular race strategy or anything. I just try to let my mind sort of just relax, and then as soon as I get in the car, then I just sort of focus on the job. I think if you try and sort of try to think things out and work out what you're going to do, you just get all, you know, tight, and you can't really sort of you can't relax and really get into it.
I know what somebody took you going. Black streak coming. I'll do a raid dance around the car. Car looks good, Russell. Is it good enough?
Who knows, Tony? You know, I mean, it looks good, but we'll have to wait and see.
When you're sitting here like this now, it must be a case of virtually cursing your luck, isn't it?
No, not really. You know, I mean, we're 15th. We've got a lot of work to do. Let's go out there and do it, Tony.
Not particularly. It's just a question of trying to keep everything calm and relaxed.
Can you keep calm and relaxed though? Isn't that impossible?
Yeah, providing you concentrate on it.
It's on. You're concentrating pretty hard now.
Yeah.
Recall. How important is this race?
Extremely. Any race is important, but this one's particularly important because it is quite a prestigious event.
Would you say it was a vital stage of your career right at this moment?
No, nothing's ever vital, is it?
Important.
Important.
They have a saying in motor racing that when the flag drops, the talking stops. In fact, they don't even put it quite so politely. But you can imagine how the adrenaline's building up now. A quick check of the rev counter, the spark plugs, the tyres. Formula 3 cars form up on the grid. That's the Selnet car of David Hunt, brother of Formula World champion James Hunt. And away they go in the race. And he hopes he won't be in action today. While the Formula 1 managers look on, this isn't to be Russell Spence's day. It's to be the day of a Dutchman, Gerrit van Kouwen. And certainly not the day for Andrew Gilbert Scott, who retires in the pits. Gerrit van Kouwen takes the checkered flag. Out come the recovery vehicles for those that haven't completed the race and those with rather bent vehicles. But out too comes the champagne. This time Gerrit shakes it out. One day perhaps it'll be on a Grand Prix roster. But meanwhile, the chief mechanic of Russell Spence has a problem. So here's the chief mechanic.
Russell has a problem with the stewards, Ben. Why is that?
Because I think he'd finally helped him out for a few laps, and Russell was trying hard to get past. So as far as I know, they had a bit of wheel banging session down in the bottom end. And maybe he's gone a bit over the top, I don't know.
Is he too aggressive a driver?
He is not too aggressive. He has a certain, what should I say, he wanted to get through there, and he knew he could do it, and he knew he was faster, so he was challenging all the way. He was trying to get into the points and get a single point out of this race.
All week you've had a week of not really knowing what's been happening, haven't you?
Yeah, we had quite a bad week, I would say. We shouldn't really, maybe a question if we should have done the race or not, and just settle down and get everything ready for the next one. This meeting is so important, so we had to hope we were a bit lucky and get everything together, which we didn't. We had quite a bit of trouble with the car and the handling of the car. Basically, it's a brand new car, brand new suspension, a few new tweaks on it and all that, and we haven't sussed it out yet. But for Donington, for sure, we'll be there.
7th place after being 15th on the grid. Does that give you a feeling that you're getting there?
We're getting there, but not enough, because our fastest lap was not quite what we expected. We'd have liked another couple of tenths quicker. But there again, it's difficult to say how badly he's been held up during his way around. I would say it's fairly all right. We're getting closer. We definitely gained something from yesterday till today.
It wasn't long since he had a very big lead in the championship, and that lead is evaporating quickly. Do you think it's going now, and it could be a season where you may well finish in 2nd or 3rd place?
We don't hope so. We never know what's going to happen, but definitely we're going to work on keeping that lead up and get it extended a bit as well. We're certainly hoping we're going to do it at Donington and get our 9 or 10 points again for that race. That's what we all had to work for.
Is the team's heads a little bit down at the moment?
No, not at all. I mean, the team is actually brand new. We started Wednesday to build a new car. So, no, we're fairly optimistic. I mean, this was a test session for us. It's the first time we run the car and everything. So, now we're very optimistic. All the teams is really worked well together and all that. So, no, everything will be fine. Just give us a bit of time.
David, it seemed to be going very well for you, and then all of a sudden you weren't there.
Yes, I'm afraid that I had a slight coming together with the car in front of me, and it bent my front right wing up, and the subsequent alteration in handling was too much. I could hardly steer the car, so I came into the pits, and we had the front end changed, the front nose cone and the wings changed, but they bent the mounting. It took a long time because the mounting had been bent. So when we got it back on, unfortunately the car wasn't quite the same as you would expect. There's various things bent up at the front. So, and I was 3 laps down by then, so it's just a matter of driving around and trying to get some good exposure for Cellnet.
At that time you were in 7th place when you came together. Was it your own error or what?
Yeah, it was one of those 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I mean, I've got no excuses really. I'm very disappointed because I think I had the measure of the 2 cars immediately in front of me, definitely. We should have finished 4th or 5th without any question.
Other than that, you think the act is starting to come together now?
Yeah, I'm quite encouraged by the weekend. We've got more work to do, but yeah, it was good.
And your telephone, is that working?
I'm sorry?
Is the telephone working?
It did on and off, yes. Yeah, I didn't make a lot of use of it though, because what I was saying wasn't really repeatable.
Yeah. Did you make any excuses on it afterwards?
No, I wouldn't dream of using it for that.
Russell, you went for it, but there wasn't an awful lot you could have done, really, was there?
Well, I think we did enough in the circumstances. We went from 16th to 7th. The car was still handling very bad, but I give it 110%, and we got 9 places.
You couldn't quite get into the points, really, could you? There was just one more place to go, and that was just a little bit far away from you to be able to catch.
Oh, no way. Yeah, I mean, there's no way realistically we could have got in the points without someone else breaking down or falling off. The fight early on was so frantic that we were losing so much time trying to cut his way through. It was a terrific scrap and a good drive.
Well, what about the championship lead? I think you've still maintained that, be it by a smaller margin now.
No. We've still got 5 points over Andy, so that's stayed status quo. With Mauricio, he's gained 5 points back on me, so that's down to 9, but I'm still leading. I've lived to fight another day.
And that other day coming up at Donington very shortly, but shortly after the race we heard that the stewards would call you in. Was there any particular reason?
Yes, apparently I overtook Keith fine with 1 lap to go, and apparently there were yellow flags, but I was that busy watching where Keith were going to brake to find my braking point that I wasn't looking. So the stewards accepted that. Keith says that he didn't see him, he stuck up for me, so no problems. The stewards and the RAC have been fabulous to me this weekend. Great.
Was it a worrying moment?
Yes, it was, because even though we only finished 7th, which in some people's eyes, in the public's eyes, won't seem a great deal, I think that's the hardest I've ever driven in my life.
Nigel, it was quite a week for Russell Spence, and one that ended up with him not getting in the points in the Formula 3 race that backed up the Grand Prix. That's got to be a disappointment to you.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. I suppose, Tony, when you look at the overall results in the championship, Russell still has a 5-point lead, which is tremendous. The result today was disappointing, but there again, you know, he did his very best with the equipment he had. The car wasn't handling right, and therefore, I think the way he finished. I mean, he did pass 4 cars in the first lap, and pick a few more off before the finish. So it was disappointing in a way, but the status quo is maintained, and here we are, you know, at the end of this meeting with the same championship lead as we had before, and the person in 3rd place in the championship has only moved up 3 points on Russell. So it's quite a nice margin still to go at.
Last year you backed a winner, Johnny Dumfries, and he managed to do it. This year you backed what looked to be a certain winner, but the last few weeks, perhaps the last 6 or 7 weeks, it really looked like things aren't going too well, and this week there's been a team breakdown as well.
It's been a hard week, Tony. Yes, indeed. I mean, Johnny last year we were lucky in a way. He certainly was had a very good preparation. This time with Russell, it's been good at the beginning. It's had its moments halfway through, and here we are now. I think almost at the stage where whatever happens next week will be appointed to the rest of the championship.
One thing that you'll be worrying about, because you have to work within obviously a budget restriction, is with a hiccup in the middle of the season. Perhaps that's where the budget might be going, and when you get to the run-in, it could be a lot more difficult.
Yes, it might well be. I think at the end of the day we have to consider that when it happens and just see what is available and when.
Are you saying that if it looks like it could be Russell Spence's championship towards the last few races, the purse strings might open a bit more?
I think we've got to try and assist Russell in whatever way we can as the season goes. Like everyone, you know, we don't have a bottomless pit we can dig into. Russell will make the most of what he's got, I'm sure, and I think we're still very optimistic for the result at the end.
Getting a double, a win last year and a win this year, how important to actually selling Volkswagen cars is that?
Very interesting, actually. The actual knowledge of people out there as to Formula 3 as such, it doesn't really mean very much to them. We as a company are only too well aware of that. In fact, we're going out next Sunday in the Observer with a full page to tell people a little bit about what Formula 3 is, that the fact that Volkswagen engines have won the last 28 races, which is good for us. It's good for the sport. Let's face it, it's the dominant engine. It's you look around a motor race paddock, I think, and you see the number of Volkswagens, particularly the number of GTIs, and I think it says it all for itself. They're there, they're proven.
Nigel Walker of Volkswagen. Well, let's turn away now from Formula 3 and onto saloon car racing veteran Alan Minshaw.
One of the greatest things I ever had in motorsport was back in the early 60s. I was working for a company called Fram Filters down in Pontypridd. I was running the motor show stand down at Earl's Court, and Colin Chapman and Jim Clark came walking along. Colin Chapman, I said, hi Jim, you're going to win the World Championship this year. And he said, well, I don't know, there's some good guys around. Fancy a cup of tea? And he came in, had a cup of tea. And we were talking, and Chapman said, can I use the phone? So he went downstairs, used the phone. I spent about an hour talking to Jim Clark, and I remember I just broken the lap record at Alton. I did a 1:57. In a Lotus 7, which was, fantastic on the big circuit. I always remember him saying to me, "God, that's bloody quick, isn't it? In a Lotus 7." That was, a big moment for me.
That for Jim Clark.
Yeah.
The Grand Prix are the greatest. They're the most fun, the most excitement. They're fantastic.
Pretty girls are part of motor racing, but so's trying to get to the top, and the top means Formula 1. The rest of the Formula 3 season for Russell Spence after the Grand Prix meeting was to prove to be a disaster. They were coming together with other cars, mostly their fault, and there was also a team going bankrupt. Russell Spence in the last Silverstone meeting only could have the chance of getting in 3rd place.
Yes, I think whatever Russell finishes now, he's going to be 3rd, but my goodness me, what a battle he's making of it. Just holding on to Andrew Gilbert-Scott, and with just one more lap to go, it still could be anyone's race.
Now the battle for 3rd, and it's coming up to the chicane the last time now, and it's Andrew Gilbert-Scott is 3rd. He has taken Russell Spence in 4th position and vindicated that forcing style of his and overcome Russell Spence's blocking tactics. In 5th position it's Gerrit van Kouwen, and it's...
Russ, well, the end of the season that promised at times so much and then at the end faded away from you.
Yes, it's at the beginning of '85 I had terrific sponsorship with Warmerstyle. the whole team have done a tremendous job. In the first 6 races we won 4 of them and came second in the other. It looked like being a fantastic season, but unfortunately, as you say, Tony, with all the problems we've had, it's just destroyed this, you know, just destroyed the year altogether.
How can you sum your feelings up at the end of the season, your own personal feelings for your future?
Well, I don't think that'd be very fair on tape. I think the best way of putting it, really, it's been a very difficult year. I think in experience, I've maybe come on 4 years in 1 year. I think I've had all the shit that anybody can have thrown at them this year. Like companies going on bankrupt on me. We've had to swap cars, we've had engine problems, gearbox problems. But on the positive side, I think it's been a very, very good year. A very good learning year for me. It's really got me, I think, it's got me to understand the racing, and in future, I think I've got a wider scope and more experience to see these problems arising and stop them before they do. So overall, a very positive year.
But where now?
That's impossible to say at this exact moment. I'm very fortunate in that the chairman of Warmerstyle, Bill Blanford, is prepared to pack me again in Formula 3. It'd be probably Warmerstyle, Mount Lee maybe. I've got to speak to the other sponsors yet. Possibly 3,000, but I personally would like another year in Formula 3. I've got a lot of proof, not to other people, just for myself. So for very selfish reasons, I'd like to go out there next year in Formula 3 and wipe up.
Do you still believe that Formula 3 is the stepping stone to Formula 1?
No, not anymore. I don't believe it can be. I think we'll see this from Mauritia. I don't think this year's been a very difficult championship. You've had 8 different winners this year. I don't think anybody's established that is dominant in here, and I don't think anybody's earned a chance of Formula 1 within this formula at the moment. I think Formula 3000 is going to have to be the stepping stone for Grand Prix racing. But of course, with turbocharged engines, I think for young British drivers now, the public has really got to get behind us. British companies have got to become, have got to use the opportunity of promotional days out at racing, and I think the only way for young Brits now to get into Formula 1 is with commercial backing from up-and-coming British companies.
A lot of people think that racing drivers make a lot of money, but on the way up they don't necessarily make very much at all.
Well, they don't when you've had a season like me. I think, you know, it's very difficult. I mean, it's a two-way thing really, because when you're sponsored, when you are a racing driver, you're expected to drive a nice car, flashy car, you're expected to have nice clothes, you're expected to go whining and dining. When you start to do all these things, the sponsors suddenly start wondering whether or not they're giving you too much money. No, a young driver on his way up doesn't make any money. I think he's an apprentice and he earns an apprentice wage. Some earn a few shillings more than others. I personally do, of course.
But that makes me come to the question now. You must be coming on 25, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth continuing the battle to get into Formula 1? Can you still make it?
Yes, of course. I mean, I started racing in 1981. This is my 5th full year of motor racing. Maybe this year I had too many hopes of winning the British Formula 3. We had 3 years in Formula 4 2000. This is my 2nd in Formula 3. I mean, in an apprentice, I don't know, to be an architect you start talking about 6 years. I mean, not only in racing have you got to have the knowledge and experience, you've also got to get hold of the bozo, which is very hard. The money side of it, Tony, is the most important aspect. And I'm sure I'm better off learning my trade in Formula 3 and Formula 3000 as opposed to trying to raise $2 million, having one chance of Formula 1 and then blowing it.
Well, I think you've got a sort of a holiday now, not totally one, but you're off to Macau, aren't you?
Yes, there's no such thing as an holiday, Tony. We'll be out here testing next week. Obviously, as you've seen in the race, we had a few problems with a number of things out there. It was a very fraught race, a very hard race. We've got to do 2 days testing next week and the cars get packed up. But while the cars are being packed up, we've got promotional work for both Mount Lee Group and Warmerstyle. Then we're off to Macau. After Macau, I fly back to go to the building exhibition for Warmerstyle. From there, then we've got some other promotional work with Mount Lee. And then by the time Christmas comes, I've booked Christmas Day off with my wife and my new child. And then on December the 26th, I'm off again testing next year's cars.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, Tony.
It's been a pretty fierce year this year, you know. When we spoke a little bit about it last week or whenever it was last time round, what have we got? We've had 3 major shunts this year. We've had 3 cars. We've had 3 teams. We've had 17 weekends of the most diabolical weather. I tell you what, baby, everything that could have happened to us this season has happened.
We supported Russell from the start because we felt Russell had the best opportunity, and in a way it's a pity that he finished 3rd, but we have a good and worthy winner, I think, in Googleman, and likewise in Andy Wallace coming 2nd.
Okay, there's one award that's left, and that's to a young man who's been to nearly every race this year and supported us. I'm having trouble seeing him. Where is he?
What's his name?
Richard Rogers, is he here? ready to race.
Where's Richard Rogers? Here he is. Right, you stay there, Richard. Just pass me. Come here. Come here. Stand up here. You're the superstar there. Richard has been our #1 supporter this year, and it would have been nice to give him a trophy from the Marlborough British Formula 3, but unfortunately we didn't win one. So there you go, Richard. That's for Richard. Well done.